Hey everyone, welcome to our, what is it? Is it our ninth webinar? I can't remember. I think it was our ninth. I just got done speaking with a current DocNation signature client, and he said tonight will be the ninth, and I thought that was cool. I didn't know he knew, but we've had a very, very loyal following for almost a year now. And later on, I'll take the floor and I'll talk about some of the huge wins that we've had for our individual clients. But thank you guys for joining. I started the last meeting the same way I'm going to start this meeting, and our phones have been ringing off the hook, and we've been having meeting after meeting after meeting. So I think that I have a list of about 5 or 6 people who I am like 3 days late getting back to. Thank you for your patience. We're trying to scale the business. We're trying to be as efficient as possible. But tonight I'm proud to introduce the CEO and founder of CrowdHealth, Andy Schoonover. He has a ton of experience in the healthcare industry and a ton of experience in business. So without further ado, Andy, hey, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really glad to be here and excited to tell you more about what we're up to.
Cool.
Awesome. So I'd love to take a minute and kind of depict how I met Andy. So one of our DocNation members, I don't know if he's on, Dr. Penn Allen, said, "Hey, I love what you're doing with DocNation," and then went forth and said, "You need to talk to this guy, Andy." We all know out there, all the physicians out there know health insurance is kind of the bane of our existence right now. It's what's driving some of our cuts. It's what takes up over 60% of our time. And it's what actually hurts our patients. A lot of the procedures out there we want to do, we can't do because health insurance says no. I always tell patients, I'm not in charge of your healthcare anymore. The insurance company is. I'm just going to try my best to do what I want to do. So then I met Andy. Actually, we met at the Bitcoin conference, right down there in Miami, and loved what his company's doing. So can you give a little overview about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, would love to. I'll give you a quick little background. I think it's great context for CrowdHealth and how I got here. I was running a healthcare technology company doing remote patient monitoring. We were monitoring blood pressure and blood sugars and weight and oxygen levels and pulse and things like that directly out of the home, primarily for folks with in Medicare Advantage. So Humana was our largest customer. We were monitoring 25 or 30,000 of their members with CHF, COPD, diabetes were our primary targets. Sold that company, rolled off that. I couldn't do the big private equity thing. So, and therefore I had a decision. I could do Cobra, which, as we all know, is incredibly expensive, or I could go into a healthcare.gov plan. I chose the latter, unfortunately, and I got a plan. It was $1,200 for me, my wife, and my 2 girls. And I kind of joke it worked until we had to use it. So my little one, who was 1 at the time, was having recurring ear infections. So for the parents out there, I'm sure you can live back to that time where they were up in the middle of the night all the night, and so we went to the ear, nose, and throat doc, who said she's got a perforated eardrum. She needs to get tubes in her ears. Again, a procedure that many of us go through. So there was one hospital in town that had a contract with the insurance company that I had. So we went to that hospital. It was a 15-minute procedure. I think we were in the hospital for all of 45 minutes or an hour. And a few weeks later, we got the bill, and it was $8,000 for that 15-minute procedure. And I was just like, holy crap, $8,000. And I was like, okay, well, this is why we have health insurance. Like, this is the whole point of having health insurance. Something like this happens, health insurance steps up. Little did I know that a few weeks later, I was going to get another note in the mail, this time from the health insurance plan, that said it was medically unnecessary, and so they were not going to pay for it. And I was like, hold on a second. One, I know it was medically necessary because now my daughter is actually sleeping through the night. The ear, nose, and throat doctor was so worried about her long-term hearing that he delayed his vacation a day to do the surgery. And so, this was bewildering to me. And we went through a number of, doctor versus doctor fights. I think it was my ear, nose, and throat doctor against their optometrist or something.
Now
And
you're
you're
just
like,
in a
"Oh, that-"
now you're just in the midst of a waste of time and energy and
exactly,
focus for
exactly.
everybody. Yep.
And so, ultimately they refused to pay for it. I had to stroke an $8,000 check to the local hospital. And I said, this has got to change. As I did more research, found out that, 48 million claims were denied for Affordable Care Act plans that year. And as we see, these deductibles are going up and up and up and up. And so ultimately what that is resulting in is about 200,000 families with health insurance are going bankrupt each year as a result of a health event. So I called my health plan. I said, I quit. If you're not going to pay my bills, I'm not going to pay your bills. And my family has been uninsured now for over 3 years. And as me and my wife started thinking about how do we operate outside of the typical health insurance space, we started building tools. We started understanding that we can negotiate with hospitals, and we can get very inexpensive care if I go directly to the doctor and pay with cash, knowing that the doctor will take less if I show up with a credit card and pay him on the day. And so we got to this point where we said, hey, maybe other people would like some of these tools. And so we started a company. Many of these companies are started out of a pain that we have in our personal lives that ultimately lead us to say this has to be done better. And so we started the company. Exactly.
Yeah.
DocNation is a perfect example of that. And so we started this company called CrowdHealth that's in essence helping people, giving them tools to operate outside of legacy health insurance space. I can go out into the mechanics of how it all works, but ultimately it's we have said no. Our members have said no to health insurance, have said yes to bringing that doctor-patient relationship back to where it needs to be, and they're doing it affordably. And I just tweeted out something today that we have 5,000 members have signed up over the last year and a half, and we've had zero medical debt through those 5,000 patients in the year and a half that we've been in existence. And we've had cancer patients, we've had NICU babies, we've had brain hemorrhages, we've had all kinds of crazy events that have happened over the year and a half, and our members have incurred $0 of medical debt as a result of those health events. So to us, that's a success. You see something now where it's, I forget what the number was, but 70 million people or something like that have medical debt that they're trying to deal with, and it's putting in people in financial stress. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is build a company that alleviates the burden. It's crazy to say, alleviates the burden of having health insurance. And then on the same way, alleviate the doctors, freeing doctors from having one pay source and therefore almost being enslaved to health insurance plans who take advantage of them, and trying to, again, kind of reinstill this doctor-patient relationship. So that I probably took more than my allotted time there, but in the last 3 or 4 minutes is a little bit of an overview of me, where I've come from, and CrowdHealth, and what our big vision is.
No, I love it, because I think you just painted a great picture, and a lot of docs out there, their ears are definitely perking up on, is there another option, right? We always talk about health insurance, and there's a lot of analogies that I use at health insurance. It's getting worse and worse. David versus Goliath, whatever you want to call it. For DocNation, one of the biggest mountains to climb, we always have talked about, is how do we get around health insurance? How do we work better with health insurance? And having an option like you just gives us another avenue. Maybe we don't have to look at the mountain. We can go, totally around it or under it. I think that'd be huge for our clients, our members at DocNation, to have a company that says, hey, well, we're going to come in as a cash pay patient. You're not going to have to get prior authorizations. You're not going to have to do peer-to-peers, and we'll negotiate on your behalf a fair number. And I've talked to you about it. I think your guys' numbers are very fair. And actually get this patient care when they need it. Not, hey, 2 weeks from now, we got to see what the insurance says. I mean, I have 28 staff in my office, and only about 7 of us are clinical, right? That means most of them are dealing with the health insurance company. So cuts down on overhead, everything. There's so much that I think we can dive into tonight. I always want to say, open forum out there. Anyone has questions about how any of this works, or any concerns, or honestly where we're going in health insurance. I think this one today can go in a lot of different directions, because when you start looking at the numbers, kind of like Andy was talking about, it'll really make you sick. And I just kind of want to dive into it. So, Reed, I'll let you kind of take over, ask some questions, pointy questions, and we'll go from there. But I can really get going and get heated here. I'd love people to ask questions out there and kind of get this ball rolling, because we can really go anywhere with this, and we might finally have another option, right? So let's do it.
Well, the only two parties that matter in an injury situation or any situation where you need to go see the doctor are the doctor and the patient. And those are the only two people who aren't happy with what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's all about deflating an inflated, broken system. And instead of getting mad and pissed off all the time, what are we going to do about it? Like, we got to figure out what we're going to do about it. And Andy and his group is doing something about it. Matter of fact, without giving too much away about Andy, he no longer needed to work before this company he started, because he's been a very successful business guy. But he did this out of a passion to change the world and to change our country first. And so he's just leading the way. I just share a little story. I've been a cash pay patient for 7 years now, Justin. Has it been that long?
It is.
My 4-year-old Hudson was in the NICU. It cost us $18,000 out of pocket, 18 grand. My next baby was born with a hole in her heart. Now, thank God it closed, but in the time she was born to the time they told us it was closed would have been about $18,000 to $20,000 if I was still with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Guess how much it cost me? Just take a guess. Let's play a game here. Take a guess. $3,000. $3,000. I mean, a lot of, Andy, you talk about bankruptcy. I mean, I have my first 2 kids. I'm a young man. My wife stays at home and takes care of the kids. And we're talking 40 grand to have 2 babies, 2 years apart. What am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? And so DocNation serves to fight the big bullies. And there's more than one. Insurance companies are one. We don't really want to pick a fight with insurance companies because they got a lot of money and they got a lot of attention from Congress, right? But what's a way we can do it? We can just go around them. And by going around them, and I'm a perfect example. I'm taken away from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Let's do that by the hundreds of thousands of people. And then all of a sudden, guess what? The power's on our side.
Boom.
It might take some time. But it's happening right now. And Andy can attest to this. Andy's company is not the only company out there right now. On
that note, Reed, we have a question on that
Cool.
topic. So Medishare and Christian Health Ministries, is that similar to what you're doing, Andy? Is it different? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so they're healthcare sharing ministries, HCSMs, as defined by Obamacare. There's kind of 6 definitions of what a healthcare ministry is, and we operate very, very differently than them. The mechanics on the back end are very, very different. Most of those, and so let me spend just a quick minute. I don't want to bore the audience on how the mechanics
we
work.
want you to do that. I was getting ready to ask you to do it.
Okay.
We want some more details. Here's why. We have a lot of private practice startup clients that we're helping them start their practice. And a lot of them want to go cash pay, and they really just kind of want to understand the mechanics of what that looks like for a patient of theirs. Because what we're going to do is we're going to be patient advocates to say, hey, we're cash pay. And if you're not cash pay, we're not here to say you can't see us. We're here to educate you. And it's actually a relatively easy process. And I think you're going to explain that right now. So that's perfect. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so the way we work is you actually get 2 bills from us every month. One is a membership fee, and that's $50 a month. It goes directly to CrowdHealth. That's how I pay my bills. One of the things that I think is really screwed up about the health insurance system is they're actually incentivized to see prices go up. The higher the prices of the procedures, the more money they can make, which is kind of counterintuitive, and we can get into that if people want to. But for us, which we wanted transparent pricing, and so $50 membership fee goes to us. Then we get a bill that comes in from one of our members, and then we will go out to our group of members and say, let's just say we have a broken arm and it's $5,000. We'll ask 50 people if they'll give Justin $100 each for his broken arm. So I'll go to Reed, and Reed says yes. We set up a bank account for Reed when he starts with us. And so if Reed says yes, $100 will go from Reed's personal account to his CrowdHealth account. It will then be transferred over directly to Justin's account. So ultimately, Justin will have $5,000 that he can go and use to pay for that broken arm. So it's almost kind of like a crowdfunding approach to how we do this. And so a lot of people might be like, oh, wow, crowdfunding, that's weird. GoFundMe, a lot of these things aren't funded. We've had 5,000 bills. Every single one has gotten funded. It works really, really great. And it's not too different than the way that we've been doing this for hundreds of years. If we have somebody in our community 100 years ago or 150 years ago who had an issue, we would all gather around them as a community and help them out. And so in essence, what we're trying to do is strip out the insurance plan and the government in between the doctor and the patient, bring the community around these people to be able to fund these really big bills. And like I think I said earlier, we've had a number of cancer cases, colon cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. We've had a brain hemorrhage with significant neuro ICU, time with PT afterwards. We've had 2 NICU babies. Unfortunately, we just had a NICU baby pass away a couple weeks or a week ago. So we've had really big bills in which we then go, if we have a big bill, we'll go and actually negotiate on behalf of our member. So if you have a brain hemorrhage, which is several $100,000, we'll go to the hospital and we'll say, hey, hospital, Andy can't pay several $100,000, but will you take $100,000 for that? And they will ultimately say yes. And so we'll negotiate those down. We'll spread it around the community, and that's how we get these bills paid. And like I said, we're closer to bill 6,000 now, and everyone thus far has gotten 100% paid through that. So that's very, very different in the mechanics of how we do it versus the sharing ministries. We allow, people of faith and not of faith in. There's no kind of weird, you can't drink or things like that associated with us. And so it's open to the masses. So, and like I said, we've had about 5,000 people sign up with us thus far.
Good. Thanks, Andy.
So speaking to your personal story, Andy, you talked about your own family situation. We have an ENT on with us, and she's asking about her plans to go into private practice. So she's in a community where there's cash paying ability, but she wants to know how she can launch her practice, do a surgery center, and what's the approach that a doctor can take to be able to receive the cash paying model to work in a medical or in a surgical subspecialty. Do you have any experience on that you could share?
Yeah, I have no experience setting up a surgery center, but for us, what we're trying to do is we're building a database of doctors who are willing to raise their hand and say, hey, I want cash pay patients. I'm down with that. And so to take one of our cash pay patients, all you have to do is have a credit card reader. Like they're going to come in with a credit card, and so you're going to be paying a couple % of credit card fees as opposed to, Anthony, you just said it sounded like 3 to 1.
Well, I was just getting ready to say that, Anthony, why don't you just change up your whole setup? If 60% of your people are working on insurance, why don't you hire 1 or 2 people and all they do is educate people on Andy's company?
Hey, there you go.
But
the benefit though is you're ripping out all these administrative expenses.
Exactly.
And you are taking cash, you're getting cash at the point of care. You're not waiting 2 or 3 or 4 months for the insurance plan. You don't have to fight with the insurance plan. We trust the doctors and the patient to make the right decision. So there's no pre-authorizations or things like that. So it is truly the decision is truly between you and the patient, which is the way that we think medicine should be. And so the cynics of the world will say, oh, well, there's going to be tons of craziness where the doctors are going to try to charge too much, or they're going to charge for the things that they shouldn't be charging for, and fraud and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, look, if we save 40% and we have an additional 5% of fraud, that's a win. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, let's not be a penny wise and a pound foolish on this kind of thing. And just let the doctors, because I think personally, 99% of the doctors out there are making the right decisions, or what they think are the right decisions for the patients. And I think there's 1% that are bad apples that will, do some fraudulent stuff. But I don't think we should waste the 30 or 40% savings that we can get because of that 1%.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one thing that we first talked about was, all our members at DocNation, we can even vet them and say, hey, these are great doctors, and kind of get them on a website and say, hey, these are doctors that are accepted, are accepting CrowdHealth patients.
Yeah, let's just be very open. We're gonna help Andy put together that database, because we have a large number of doctors that we work with, a large number, and so we're gonna help him build that. Like, this is a team thing. DocNation, we don't just exist to negotiate contracts. We're building relationships. We're doing them both politically and things like what we're doing with Andy, and we're just strengthening ourselves every single week that goes by with relationships like this. So I'm excited about that. There's some questions. Let's hit some questions.
Any DocNation doc who wants to be in our database, we will absolutely put you in there. And if we have, for the ENT doc who wants to go and build the surgery center, the frustrating thing to me was after I, wrote that $8,000 check and I told my story on LinkedIn, I had an ENT who was like, oh yeah, we do these for like $1,800 in our office all day long. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes.
That's a lot. Neil, let's bring you in on this. So I do your procedure, right? How much do you think the patient gets charged if they were paid cash for your procedure? You might know this, to like the ASC or to the hospital. Total.
Maybe 10 grand.
10 grand total. How much did the doc get? 12.
Yeah, probably 1,200 of that.
Yeah. So a lot of people think doctors are the problem in healthcare. And I have some numbers here that'll just blow your mind. I mean, $4.3 trillion in healthcare dollars last year in the US, and the docs were about 8% of the doc salary, the doc reimbursement. So it's kind of funny. A lot of people, Andy, that I talked to at your event that I met you at, kind of were a little mixed emotions on doctors and hospitals, and kind of throwing us in the same basket. And that's one of the things DocNation trying to say is, listen, it's not us. I mean, I've done procedures where I see the bill and I'm like, where is that money going?
Yeah.
Because I got $300. Like, I'm the one that did all the work. I'm the one that studied how to do it. Who got all that money? So I love this concept of kind of taking out the hospital's big cut, taking out the insurance's big cut, and just having the money go from the customer to the one that's providing the product. I mean,
the vast majority of the savings here too is really from the hospitals. It's not taking it away from the docs. And in fact, you go to a specialist or a primary care doc or something, it was like, look, I want to pay you a fair wage so that you'll actually spend the time with me. I mean, what is the average now for a primary care doc? It's like 6 minutes or something like that. I was like, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to know anything about me or of significance in 6 minutes. Let me actually pay you more so that you can spend more time with me, so that you can understand what I'm eating and I'm putting into my body, and if I'm working out, and my family history and all those kinds of things, because that's worth it to us. Right?
So then ultimately you can spend less time with me.
Exactly. We had a member in Austin, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, something like that. And they had to go to this orthopedic surgeon, and we're like, great. And the orthopedic surgeon's like, torn ACL. So repair, they was like, it's going to be somewhere between $24,000 and $26,000 to do this at the local hospital. And so we called him and we said, hey, would you do it at a surgery center? And he's like, yeah, for sure. I'm happy to do it at a surgery center. So we moved that ACL reconstruction to a surgery center. And I think the bill ended up being like $11,000 or $12,000 or something like that. And so you literally can cut it in half by just changing the location. And we have the same great DocNation doc. We have the same great anesthesiologist doc. We have this, the same procedure being done at a arguably better facility for less than half the price. And, the insurance companies are pushing people into the hospitals. And so that's where we're getting all the savings from. Right. So to kind of follow back into the mechanics, for an individual, we're charging you $50 a month, and then up to $125 a month for your helping of other people. We've only pulled 60 of that $125. So if you're a member of CrowdHealth in July, you'll pay $110 per person for your healthcare. And so that's the craziness of how inflated our, health insurance is. My family, we're paying $440 or something like that, in July. And it's actually a little more than that, like $500 in July. And, on the exchange, I went to the exchange this year just because I was curious what my family would be. And it was like $1,500 and a $14,000 deductible. So that's how different this model is versus the legacy, health insurance model.
Yeah, I'm at 12. I looked it up before tonight too. I'm at $1,200 a month for my family and $8,000 deductible. And honestly, my kid just got tubes in his ears in March, and we wrote a $4,000 check straight to deductible. Insurance didn't cover a penny. And even once you get a deductible, then you have the out-of-pocket max, right? Too.
Yep.
So you hit the $8,000 deductible. Out-of-pocket max is $16,000. I'm talking as a patient now, right? Not as a doc. $16,000 out-of-pocket max, where you're still paying 20% of everything. I tell all my patients just assume you're hitting the deductible.
One of the things is crazy to me is that the health insurance space, or the healthcare space generally, it's a B2B relationship. It's a relationship between insurance companies and big hospital systems generally, right? And so it is so confusing to me as a consumer. I live in Texas. My joke is that I hate getting two things in the mail. It's my explanation of benefits for my health insurance plan and my property taxes. Because I don't know if those are going to be $500, $5,000, or $50,000. I couldn't give you an over and under to save my life. And I was talking to a guy. I went to Stanford. The number one guy in my class. I was talking to him a few months ago, and he's like, the only thing that makes me feel like an idiot in this world is health insurance. And this is like the smartest guy you'd ever meet. He has no idea, if you get that thing in the mail, what this means. And so it's like, there's got to be something that changes here so that we as consumers can play a bigger role in this, and that you as docs can play a bigger role in this too, because I truly believe that you work for whoever pays you. Right. So I want to pay you as a patient so that you work for me, not work for the hospital system, not work for the insurance company. I want you to work for me, because it's my body that we're dealing with here. So that's where I think it's so important to get back to that doctor-patient relationship, where the patient is paying directly for their care.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There are some good questions here that actually we have.
I'll shush.
No, this is good. One of the good questions here, I think it applies to a lot of docs on here, because I know they write a lot of medications, Eliquis, that kind of stuff. Are you able to negotiate for costs of medications, like long-term medications, all that kind of,
Yeah, we're getting somewhere like 70% less than what health insurance plans are paying.
It makes sense.
By ripping the PBM out of the middle.
Yeah. So that's what I figured to ask. And people always ask, where's the money going? Like, the money, this is what blows my mind, is how blatant they are with it. These are publicly traded companies, so they have to post their earnings, they have to post their CEO bonuses. And Becker Spine, they publish them every year, and we look at them and we just ho-hum them. I have the numbers right here. United Health Group in 2022 profited $20.6 billion. That's off the backs of healthcare. We were talking before we got on about CVS Health and how well they've done in the last 10 years. And one of the things that I always I think opens everyone's eyes to how corrupt health insurance really is, I like the word legacy health insurance, is CVS made the decision to stop selling cigarettes in 2014. And I thought they were crazy as a business guy. You're going to stop selling nicotine addiction? That's one of the best things out there. But the reason they did that is because they realized they could make more money selling health insurance than selling cigarettes. So that's really got to open your eyes. And they're making more money off the back of sick people than they were off the back of making people sick selling cigarettes. So these are the kind of things where, DocNation, it is such the perfect time. We had our first town hall a few months ago with a lot of great docs, and it is such the perfect time to stand up and say, guys, look, they're not even trying to hide it. Right, everything's right in front of us. The doctors need to take back control. Working with a company like Andy's company, and working with patients that Andy's going to have, that's what we want to do. This is why we went to medicine, was to take care of the patients, get paid what we think we're worth, and not deal with all, for lack of a better word, the BS that is in medicine. And it's just money going in directions it shouldn't go in, time going in directions it shouldn't go in, and people not getting the help they need.
Andy, when it comes to somebody who gets their bill paid, let's say they have a large bill that the community funds through your company, and then they decide to leave after that, what type of implications or issues does that create for your company?
Yeah,
how do you manage that?
Yeah, we've had people, and this is happening with pregnancies fairly often, where people jump in and have their baby and then jump back out. There is some moral hazard there. I mean, we put things into place to keep people from doing some of those things. So there's a couple things that we should know. If you're a smoker, we don't allow you in. If you're over 240 pounds, we make some exceptions given height, but generally you're not allowed in. For pre-existing conditions, you can't just jump in and get your pre-existing condition paid for and then jump back out again. So for pre-existing conditions, we ask you to pay for your pre-existing conditions for 2 years. And then after that, the community will help you out with any of your pre-existing conditions. So it keeps people from just jumping in and jumping back out. Although we do have a decent chunk of people with type 1 diabetes who have found that CrowdHealth is so much less expensive than their alternatives that they can still pay for all of their supplies, especially given the discounts that we can get them, and still save a ton of money by doing this. So we have not had a huge issue. And in fact, we lose about 1% of our people every month with it, which is incredibly low for any kind of direct to consumer space. Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 4% for any kind of direct to consumer subscription based business. So we've not had an issue with people jumping in, jumping out. We add members every single month. We're growing probably 15% month over month now. So even if we had, a decent chunk of members leave, we'd have way more members to replace them than, we would need to continue on. Yeah.
Can you talk about the negotiation process? Who does that part for the business? How do they approach it?
Yeah. So we do the negotiations for our members. We have a team of attorneys that do that. And so we will, go in pretty, we understand we're going in with Goliath, right? So,
Yeah.
We go in with plenty of stones and a very great slingshot with lots of information to say, hey, there's actually laws out there that say you can't mandate a price after the service is rendered unless you tell them what the price is beforehand. And so most of these people that we have, these are emergency situations. You're sitting there unconscious. You have no idea what the price is going to be. They send you a $50,000 bill, and there's a law, UCC 2-305, which basically says it's an open price contract, and therefore you have to negotiate it in good faith. So we go to the hospitals and we say, okay, what is a fair and reasonable rate for this? We have attorneys that help us on that. One of the metrics that they have to present is how much it costs you to provide that service. And if you ask a hospital how much it costs you to provide that service, they don't have a freaking clue. They have to give a bunch of McKinsey consultants in there to figure out what that was. And by that point, it's not worth it. And they'll just say, like, look, give me Medicare plus 25 or 40% or something like that, and let's call it a day. And we're like, great, done. Let's get this thing paid. So, and we think that, a hospital can make money on Medicare plus 125 or Medicare plus 140. I mean, I think that's just a reasonable thing to do. We don't have to be paying Medicare plus 250 or 300 like the commercial plans, pay. Those are price gouged numbers.
So Medicare plus 125 plus 150, I think a lot of docs would take. If we knew we were getting that across the board. I mean, a lot of times I see it down in Florida.
Especially if you get it at the point of care.
Oh my
right?
God.
Like
And
you get it in a credit card
too.
or a wire.
Oh
and
my God.
docs across the board. We've not had one doc, except in the state of Massachusetts, which some reason they're crazy up there, has never said no to cash. Like they have all been like, yes, please give me cash. I want more cash. And we try to get our people to independent docs. These independent, we want to support local, independent docs, because they're the ones getting squeezed by the insurance companies more than anybody else.
Yeah, I think most people negotiating contracts right now are getting 80% of Medicare, 60% of Medicare I've seen, and you can't keep the lights on with that kind of stuff.
Well, especially and especially for those in-office visits, like we want to pay you right. Like for those in-office visits, it's the massive hospital-based procedures, inpatient procedures that are the wickedly expensive ones, and that's where these hospitals are trying to price gouge people. And so that's where we will get attorneys involved to help our members negotiate these to fair and reasonable prices.
Andy, I love what you guys are doing here. My background, I'm on the industry side. I've always been a startup guy, so I had an interest in new technologies. We're looking at cost benefit analysis, and it takes so much for these new companies, startups, to bring a product to commercialization, doing the studies. And Dr. G mentioned earlier, you talk to somebody and they're saying it's experimental. And so access is everything for the patient. Access is also everything for these startups too, because their goal is they want to get an exit, and then people will beat them down on valuation and things like that, because they're not sure nowadays what the insurance environment's going to be long term. And so I'm looking at this and I was like, who loses? Again, Reed, patients lose, doctors lose. And these are new technologies that are advancing medicine. So I love what you're doing. I feel like this is a Netflix documentary that we're writing.
That's right. That's it. Well, DocNation is an agency for physicians, individual physicians. They come, they sign up for the signature membership, and we are their agent. Just like a professional athlete has an agent, doctors need agents too. And what a better fit than to bring CrowdHealth on. And on the health insurance side of things, replacement. What do you call that again, Andy?
We call it healthcare crowdfunding, but
no. Anthony, what's the word? Legacy. Yeah, legacy.
Legacy health insurance.
Legacy. It's like a nice way of calling them.
I know. That's just you're like a sub agent below DocNation to take care of their legacy, what would be health insurance. So their health insurance costs. I don't even know what to call it, because this hasn't been an option for a very long time. And so man, just to know that we call you and you negotiate. There's no negotiating. We don't do any negotiation as the patient. That feels amazing to me.
Patients don't generally want to negotiate with their docs, which is fair. The only thing we ask our patients to do is say, hey, go to your doc and say, we're paying in cash. Do you have a cash pay rate? And typically the doc's cash pay rate is, 20, 30, 40% less than what, a health insurance plan would pay. And so we're like, great, if you give me the cash pay rate. So that's not really a negotiation. It's just asking for the cash pay rate.
I could tell you our numbers straight off the bat. I mean, we charge 9 times Medicare to health insurance. We know they're only going to pay 1.2 at best times Medicare. It's this dance that you have to do, right? I always joke, you go to Burger King and you're like, hey, I want a Whopper. They're like, all right, it's $100. You're like, all right, I'll give you $9. Like, why can't it just be when my cash pay patients, they walk in, so like PRP, let's say, platelet-rich plasma, right? I'll be very open with what I charge. I don't think it's too egregious. The kit cost me $220. I have a centrifuge that cost me a bunch of money. I have a bunch of overhead. I charge $800 for a joint. I don't care how many joints it is. However much PRP you give me 8 cc's, 10 cc's, I'll put it in 2 joints for $800. There's one kit, right? That's what it is. And if a patient comes in, it's like, hey man, can you do it for $650? 99 out of 100 times, I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's just do it. Let's get you done. The cash pay patients, to me, it's how the world works everywhere else.
Everywhere else.
Goes into Burger King and says, that Whopper's $10. I'm going to give you $9. And there's a middleman that's negotiating between you and Burger King, deciding how much you pay. It takes 2 weeks to get your burger and you're sitting there hungry. Like, that's just insanity when you think about it in any other aspect of life other than healthcare. And how did we get here? I don't know. But I think we're at the point where it's done. They've made their money. You can see what they made, and it's done, and it's time to move on to another option.
Dr. G, I think, honestly, you said doctors are not the problem. Technology and the med devices, they're not the problem either. Every single one that I've been involved with, they're willing to work for you guys and serve the patient and doctor as well. So they're going to play ball as well. I wonder how we can maybe even partner more with some of those companies.
Well, the funny thing is insurance companies are going to have to figure out how to play ball differently. Instead of hitting grand slams every time they come up to the plate, they're going to have to start to bunt, because they're going to be like, oh, okay, so this is a problem because everyone's leaving us in the masses. And Andy, how long's your company been around for?
About 2 years.
2 years. And you have 6,000 members?
5,000.
5,000 members?
Yeah.
Andy, can you speak to something that you touched on earlier regarding like a big, a huge event where the cost was really high? And you're saying that the most people had to pitch in was like 110, so like 5,000 people were pitching in 110. How did that, what was the situation, the medical need that existed? How big was that? Because we've got a question here about sustainability and reliability of being able to follow through on those
Sure.
payments being made. Can you talk about like a case study of your own patient situation that was significant, like one of the biggest ones you had, and the number of members you had and how the mechanics came together that it all was able to be covered?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
It's the one of the worst case scenarios is a NICU baby. Typically, let's just say $1 million NICU baby. And we will go in and negotiate that with the hospital. Typically, we can get that down to about 250 grand. And so then we can either take our existing members, our 5,000 members times $50, get you to 250 grand. Or what we prefer to do, which is just modern day finance, is say, hey, hospital, instead of 250 grand, would you give us, 20 grand a month for the next year? It would be 13 months, whatever. And so if you think about that, it's 20 grand a month into 5,000, which is $4 per member per month.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you can, in essence, what you're doing is you're using 0% hospital financing
Right.
to be able to pay that out over a long period of time. We do that for any large expense ever, like our homes, except Dr. G, who I'm sure pays for his houses in cash. No, or whatever, like we pay for our homes over a period of time, our cars over a period of time. We pay for all of our big expenses over a period of
Yep.
time. And so, why not be able to do that with healthcare too? With 0% hospital financing, it stretches out that payment. United Healthcare can't do that because they have a contract with the hospital that says, I'm going to pay $1 million for that NICU baby. And so that's the other thing that we can do. We've not had to do that thus far, but that is the kind of, worst case scenario, quote unquote, is you can spread that out over a period of time so that it's very easy for the community to absorb some of those costs. So that would be the worst case scenario.
So that bill is received. At what point in time do you go to bat for negotiation? Because there's a question about bills going to collections. Where do you intercept things to prevent them from creating the stress, the anxiety, the hassle with bill collection?
Yeah, so we call the member. They typically will let us. They have a NICU baby or a cancer or whatever. Like you've got some forewarning of big bills. So the other thing to think about here too is, let's say you have a NICU baby. You're not going to get the bills for 3 months probably, and then you're not going to have to. It won't affect your credit score for another year, given just laws. And so what we tell our people is say, listen, here's what's going to happen is we're going to try to negotiate this with the hospital. And here's what the bully is going to try to do. They're going to try to bully you. And what they're going to do is they're going to send you to collections, and the collections agency is going to call you. But here's the beauty of that is you have them exactly where you want them. And so if they're having a collections agency call you, they know that they're not going to be able to collect it themselves. And so they're going to give you a discount on that bill. And so you've got them exactly where you want them. So if you can flip that frame of reference for these people, 90% of them, when they get that collections call, they're kind of like, ooh, yeah, I got you. I got you. As opposed to being like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with my credit score? I've been building this credit score for 30 years. What am I going to do? We say, don't worry about it. It can't touch your credit score until 12 months later. We'll have it negotiated by then. So the collections agency call is actually a really good one. Typically, we can get them solved with the hospital before a collections agency call, but we just have that conversation with people. And if we come across to them as an ally, then, as opposed to an opponent, right, which a health insurance plan is more of an opponent than an ally, they're like, okay, please guide me in this crazy complex world of healthcare.
Mhm.
And most of our members are like, this is great. Like we love the fact that we are now responsible for our bill, can impact our bill, and they see how much we can negotiate these things down and are typically blown away. They're like, wow, this is incredible. So we want to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Yoda to Luke Skywalker, right? They don't understand the Force, but once they see it, they're like, holy crap, like this is cool. So most of our customers are okay with that.
Hey, Andy.
We've got several DocNation members tuned in and several signature members. They're asking about how they can spread the word, the best way to get potential patients to sign up with your company, how they can distribute it, promote it. Is there something that you can share on that as far as how to get the
there's a
word
good
out?
question from Aaron here about that. Like,
Yeah.
is there pamphlets we can put in our waiting room? How can we get patients to learn about CrowdHealth? Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
I'm reading at the same time. It's a great question.
Yeah, we've got pamphlets. We can get people pamphlets. So if you email me at docs@joincrowdhealth.com, and that it goes to me, I can get you pamphlets. I can get you whatever you need. What I can also do is start a promo code. DocNation can be our promo code. And so any of your members who want to come and just try us out, they're like, wow, this may be good, too good to be true. Come try us out. We'll do $99 for 3 months. And they can just, like I said, try us out and see if they like it and see if they're comfortable with it. And if they are, then they can be with us for a while. We have about 25% of our members join us with health insurance because they're like, I'm not really sure about this. And so I'm going to do both for a while just to make sure. But the vast majority of those people end up ditching their health insurance when their enrollment period comes up and go with CrowdHealth. One other quick one. Each member has a personal care advocate internally. One of the things I hated about health insurance is having to call into big call centers and, you tell somebody about your issue and then they punch you to somebody else and you have to tell them about your issue. And these are, medical issues, personal issues. You have one person, you talk to that person, the same person every single time. You can contact them by phone, by email, by text, whatever is convenient for you. You can schedule a call with them so you don't have to wait online. That's the cool thing about being an ally, an ally to some of these folks as opposed to being an opponent.
And then is there an onboarding process? I have 5 texts on my phone. You guys can put it in the chat if you want, but they're signature members of docs who want to join. We're not talking about patients. We're talking about docs who want to join. Is there an onboarding process? What does that look like?
I don't know if there's no onboarding process for docs because we don't have networks.
They don't need to do anything. They just
you don't have to do anything.
Patients.
All you have to do is be open to having a cash pay patient and accepting credit cards.
What I would love to do is, because I was one of my first questions to you was, how do we vet the docs, make sure that, the docs are good. They're not gonna corrupt the system, if you will. And I agree that it's 1%. But I'd like to keep that 1% out even. And what I would love to do is have like a joint web page even where your members can look and say, here's a doctor in Kansas City that we know will work with us. We know will negotiate with us. If you have an ailment for, let's say for me, right, for spine or for joint pain, go see them. We know they'll work with you. We know that it's going to be an easy go about it. I would love to have some kind of like resource. And I think the docs on here would love to be on that kind of resource of saying, hey, this is where we're going to send our patients because these guys are going to do a good job. They're trustful docs, and we know that they'll negotiate with us a price that is good. So I don't know. We could probably talk about that offline, Andy, but I'd love to get like a website. And I think, it'd be nice for, and not saying you can't go anywhere else, but hey, these are ones we vetted. They're good docs and good to go. And I think a lot of DocNation docs would enjoy being in that group and kind of helping your clients out.
Yeah, we talked about that the last time we talked, and I was like, it's an awesome idea if we could have kind of a peer evaluation of each other because, Dr. G knows the other doc in, South Florida or wherever, better than I would, right? And so if Doc G says it's a great doc, then I think it's a great doc. And if they're okay with getting paid in cash, then we want to start sending some of our members there. So I think that doc peer-to-peer evaluation of each other is a pretty interesting concept.
So that's one thing. All the people out there that aren't DocNation members yet, that's going to be one of our goals in the next few months is building that network.
That's right.
And we'll get you on that list. I mean, that's what we want. We want to build a network of good, respectable docs. That's what we're looking for. That's the whole point of this.
As a leader for DocNation, I'm just really, really proud we're able to bring this to the nation. I mean, this is power. This is power and strength. And all we're doing and all we need to do is build it in numbers. And then this could completely change a lot of people's lives. We have 10 minutes left. Neil, I think you're about to say something. Right after that, let's hammer out some of these questions. There's some questions that haven't been asked. Let's just go boom, boom, boom. Justin, if you just read them off. Here's one that says, what's the demographic of of most patient subscribers? How are you expanding that pool?
Yeah, most of our advertising is getting on podcasts to talk and tell the story. So it's much like this, where we get a bunch of people together and talk about the story. So most of our, advertising marketing is through podcasts.
Okay, cool. Can money from FSA?
Was there a second part of that question?
Yeah, how are you expanding that pool? I think you touched on that.
Oh, the demographics was the first one. Yeah, we're about 60% male, 40% female, mid 30s is our average. BMI, interestingly, is about 4 points below the national average. So we've got young, healthy males. 60% are singles, 40% are families. So we do get a lot of babies, lots and lots of babies. Here's the crazy stat of the day. 1.4% nationally have at-home births. Almost 50% of the at-home births are 50% of the births in CrowdHealth thus far have been at home. And I think we're at about 129 births.
Wow.
Which is crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. That's just the kind of people that, we get. They're into more natural medicine.
We have somebody on here who's keenly interested in the at-home and the OBGYN world. So I'm sure
I'm texting with her right now.
I'm sure she's enjoying this.
I'm texting with her right now. Yep.
She's we also, the other thing too, that's interesting is holistic, integrative, naturopathic, whatever type of medicine that you and your doc want to go after, we're totally fine with that. So, it's totally up to you, the patient, as to how they would like to get their body treated.
I love that. I mean, I say all the time to people, I think Nikhil's on here, and me and him go back and forth about regenerative medicine, and I'm a big fan of regenerative medicine, right? I think we need more data on it, but I always tell patients, they're like, well, what would you do first, steroids or PRP? I'm like, well, there are 0 side effects to me putting your blood back into you, right? Other than infection risk. I would always do PRP first if it was covered by insurance. I told people the only side effect of PRP is that it's not covered by insurance. And honestly, the cost, if I knew that was the case, I could bring the cost down because I could buy the kits on bulk, right? My costs come down all of a sudden. So I gotta bring my cost down to PRP to the same cost of what a regular injection is. I love that. I didn't even think about that till just now. Yeah, I don't have to have this mindset anymore of, what's sad, and this is even to Neil's point, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I want to go into this. What is sad, and I think every doctor can answer this, is sometimes you don't want to bring up an option to a patient that's not covered by insurance because you kind of don't want to give them that hope, because then you turn around and say, oh, this is a great procedure, it has good data behind it, but it costs $20,000. And they just kind of stare at you. And you're like, yeah, sorry, I probably shouldn't even have said anything, right? Because it's not an option for you. This kind of really gets rid of that. I mean, stem cell and PRP world, I think the price would come down a lot if we can do it and more often, and kind of have quote unquote coverage. And honestly, I think patients would do better, and I think they'd have less visits and all that going forward. And Nikhil just chimed in, so I love that he is on here. But it's definitely interesting it'll so much change my mindset. There's a lot of times I don't bring things up because I'm like, it's not covered. I don't want to get them too excited, because then I know it's a battle. That's interesting.
And as pricing comes down, I truly believe that we can do some more of these. I mean, everybody looks at too many procedures being waste. And so from my perspective, I'll give you a person. Let me make sure I'm precise on this. Colonoscopies are typically in insurance land, legacy insurance land, somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000. We're getting them for somewhere around $800. And so I make a decision as just an individual with a family history of colon cancer. I'm 44, but I go and get, a colonoscopy every couple of years. Now, a health insurance plan would not approve that, right?
No.
Because that is waste. But for me, it's not waste because it's my money. I'm paying for it. So, it's the same waste as putting new tires on my car every year. If that's what I want, that's what I should be able to pay for. And the insurance
Absolutely.
company no longer dictates what I do. That the other thing is I get a full panel of blood twice a year. Maybe it's waste, but it's $45 for me to get a full panel. Through the health insurance space, it would be $650 to get a full panel. And so is it waste at 45 for me just to know what's going on with my body and being interested in that being, a driver of my, everyday behavior? No, it's not. And so the healthcare system becomes significantly different when you have a direct consumer free market approach, as opposed to getting, the thumbs up from your insurance plan, whether or not they'll pay for it. I can actually do stuff that I want as opposed to what the health insurance plan wants, because I'm getting way lower prices. I'm using my own money. That's the beauty of this, I think.
The number one deterrent to good primary care, which is what we really need to avoid, diabetes getting out of control, high blood pressure getting out of control, is cost. You can ask anyone that. Any patient out there will say, I haven't got to a doctor in 3 years just because it costs too much.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you say to people who have direct primary care? They're paying for a subscription, that way they have access
love
to
it.
most things, and then on top of that, they do one of these ministry sharing programs. With your company, do you need to do the combination of those two things? Is there a benefit to doing both those things, or at least the direct primary care, or are you finding that can be removed as well?
No, we love DPC. We love DPC. Direct primary care.
You'd say continue with that piece.
Yes.
And then have this be what you use for catastrophic type of care.
Yeah,
So the health sharing,
exactly.
this would replace the health sharing.
Yeah, and we will fund up to $300 per year per person for DPC. So it doesn't take it all, but it at least helps. Was that $25 a month or something?
Yeah,
and so it helps with that. So we're huge fans of DPC. We think DPC is something that everybody who's got the means should go and do.
I don't know what's going on in Reed's head, hearing you talk about how you do 2 panels a year, but I would love to geek out with you separately on what your lifestyle is. And I'm curious if you could share personally how this process you've been through as you built this company, how are you doing your own personal health management and nutrition differently? Have you changed anything, or are you the same as you were as when you started as you are today in terms of like alcohol consumption or cigars or fast food restaurants? Like,
Sure.
Has this done something to you? Have you grown and changed your lifestyle approach too as a part of this, or has it been about the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think that during this process, I have stopped drinking alcohol. That was just a personal thing for me. It has nothing to do with the company. This was one of those that was like, it just doesn't feel great. So I don't drink alcohol anymore. But what I would say is, I would think that the things that I'm doing in my lifestyle are things that I'm trying to enable the company to provide to our members that members may not have heard of. So a cardiac calcium score is something that we will be fully funding this fall. So if you want to go to get a cardiac calcium score, I think that's the right name for it. If you want to do it, you can go and do it in October, and it's fully fundable. In August, we're doing VO2 maxes, which is, many of you guys know what that is.
So Jess and I what is a VO2 max?
You guys.
Well, so yeah, I mean,
There's 38 doctors, everyone on the
most people know.
Everyone knows what VO2. I'll tell you guys later.
A product of respiratory function.
He knows.
A respiratory function, product of respiratory function, and then in September we're doing a DEXA scan. So and these are things that I just do in my life. And so every month we have something that's different that says, hey, if you want to do this, you can do this. And we'll show you like what this means to your health, because it's not just that you're 240 pounds, but your visceral fat is through the roof, or something, or your VO2 max is really, really low, and so here's how you get your VO2 max up. And so are there things, I think there's two ways of changing our healthcare system. One is, yeah, we can work on the price. Like that's one that is directly relatable to what we're trying to do. However, what if we can actually get people to have a healthier lifestyle, so that in the 20 or 30 or 40 years, we don't have congestive heart failure and diabetes and COPD and all these chronic conditions that not only take the healthcare dollars, but they take life out of people. I want to be able to be 80 and hang out with my grandkids. Like that's ultimately what I want.
That's right.
And so how do we help people understand what these other tools are? And given that we're paying them in cash, these tools are very inexpensive. My DEXA scan, I think, was $69. Like everybody should get a DEXA scan for $69 to understand what their body fat is, their visceral fat, their bone density and things like that. That is a dumb thing not to do. Everybody should have a DEXA scan. So you can start making these decisions. Everybody should get a yearly blood panel. It's $45. It's almost nothing. Like people should be doing these things. And so we're trying to help people get educated about some of these really inexpensive tools that tell them so much about what's going on with their bodies.
I think
I was actually
first of all, Anthony, I know what it is. I just want to make sure everybody else is. I think about health a little bit different. Okay. A little bit different because I was an athlete my whole life. And so it was a requirement for me to go have those tests done. As paying for me to be there, they want to make sure I'm healthy. And so I feel very spoiled to know, if I wouldn't know these things, I wouldn't be as healthy as I am right now. Just the knowledge and understanding of, man, I don't have to change too much of what I'm doing, but I could just say no to this and do a little bit more of this. And all of a sudden you live longer. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a lot of assessments done, both Justin and I, on our bodies, and it changes the way you think. And so that's just a personal thing. That's just for people to be healthier. But then if you stop, you can turn that into a business thing, because now all of a sudden the government, who at some point we're going to be really in cahoots with, the government's going to say, we have a healthier country. Like how do we have a healthier country? It's because of a little base knowledge and it not breaking the bank. And so Andy, you are tip of the spear, man. We're so grateful to have you on here. We're past time. We try to stick to an hour. If there's anything else pressing with anybody else on the screen, feel free to say it. Everybody, there's a couple of questions not asked. Please schedule a meeting. We'll go in deeper. Andy, I'm going to offer this up for Andy. We'll have Andy join a couple of meetings. He's been very, very great to us. Neil, do you have anything? Anthony?
I just was going to say here.
Go ahead, Neil. Yeah. Go ahead.
My only add was, when we were talking about this, is it's a no-brainer for me for the signature members to be sent right over.
Yeah.
Come on over. Our number one group of people that we get is entrepreneurs. Our second group of people are doctors and nurses, funny enough. And so that's our second biggest group. And I would say a lot of those doctors and nurses are entrepreneurs because they're out going and doing their own practices. And so we'd love to have you. docs@joincrowdhealth.com. If you have any other questions or things, if you guys are okay with that, they can
absolutely.
I saw a bunch of questions down there we can get to that are
we
happy to answer.
We don't have a lot of rules, if any, at DocNation, because we're ruled to death in this country.
Yeah, we're trying to break some of the rules. So I'd like to end it and just say, Andy, thank you very much. I'd love to bring you out and kind of be at our next town hall. The town hall is all the members come together and chat. You'll get to see the faces of a lot of our signature members. And this, to me, is a partnership that DocNation needs. We're not going to partner with United Health. We're not going to partner with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm the only physician on this panel, and you can, I made a funny reel, I guess we'll call it, that made some waves on Instagram and LinkedIn about how hard it is to work with insurance. And yes, it was satire, but it is wearing us down to the point where people don't want to go into medicine. And that is the number one cause, I'd say, is health insurance. People are trying to get around it, trying to go cash pay, trying everything we can to get out from under this gigantic thumb that is just ruining our field. So I really, really appreciate what you've done and coming on here and hopefully helping our members. I think, I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. I have a lot of respect, obviously, for the guys here at DocNation. Everyone that's listening, you know, this is the way we have to go, guys. This is what we have to do to form this nation, form this union, and kind of take control of medicine. And it's gonna be fun. All the links are in the chat to join DocNation, how to get more info about CrowdHealth. Thank you so much, guys.
Our job at DocNation is to answer questions and bring people together. Patients don't want to go see the doctor because it's too expensive. Doctors don't want to become doctors because they're working 60% of their time is not what they went to school for. Let's end that.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time tonight, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, Andy.
Andy.
Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank y'all.